I'm Julie Barkey with this Senate update. A bill sailing through the Senate would restore voting rights to convicted felons. It has bipartisan support and it follows a national trend. Senator Bobby Joe Champion caught up with us to explain why he opted to carry this legislation. Your bill would restore voting rights to convicted felons once their sentence is served. So why did you decide to carry this legislation?
You know, this legislation is very important to me because when I think about there's over 57,000 Minnesotans who would be impacted by that. And of that 57,000, there's over 47,000 that are living in our communities. They're raising families, paying taxes, but guess what? They don't have a right to vote. Because sometimes, people make bad decisions, obviously, and they go through the judicial system. They paid their debt, but our probationary sentences here in Minnesota are long. They can be 10, 15 years. And so when you think in terms of that alone, that means there's no clear, bright line as to when people vote. They usually never get notification of their right to vote, and that is restored. So they think it's a lifelong sentence that if they have a felony on their record, that it takes forever for them to realize that they can vote. The other reason why I did it is because empirical data suggests that if children see their parents voting, they are more than likely to vote as well. Right? And so to me, that's important when we think in terms of raising good children, making sure that they're productive, making sure that they are taking part in our democracy. That's important. Another reason that's important to me is that when you think in terms of people making a bad mistake, obviously, find themselves in the judicial system, empirical data shows that if they are involved in pro-social activities, that it decreases their return to prison, and therefore our cost for correction goes down. And lastly, the bright line that I talked about earlier. We want people to have that bright line. So those are some of the reasons why I was moved to be the chief author of the voting restoration bill.
Senator, this has had a couple of committee hearings in the Senate already. It has not been real controversial, but one of the questions that has come up in committee is, what do the victims think about this? And you stated, quote, "I think the victims would say, I want that person to change so no one else has to endure what I have had to endure." Do you find that this is still the case? Is that why you brought this forward?
That's one of the reasons, because think about it. If we were unfortunately a victim, we want people to change. And when I hear impact statements in court, because I practice law, when I hear victims speak, if they're being interviewed by the media, they always say that they want to make sure that a person pays the cost for the unfortunate place or the offense that they find themselves in. But they always say, I want to make sure that you make the necessary changes so that you don't reoffend or do the same thing to me, to someone else. And so I really do believe that that is a real motivator for me, is because when individuals make better decisions and they are in pro-social activities and they're being contributing members to society, then that means their chances of, or the chance of them being in criminal activity and waging, a deficit-based thinking on our society diminishes. And so I felt very strongly about and totally in tune with that comment that I made in the judiciary, because I do believe that to be true.
Senator, this is kind of a national movement as well. 18 other states either have this law or are working on it in their state legislatures at this time. Is it working?
It's absolutely working, and in fact, there's at least 13 that I can think of that currently has it, and not to mention the others as you have, that are really looking at it as well and making the necessary changes. Those places like Illinois and Hawaii and Oregon and Utah and North Dakota, who is one of our neighbors, right? And so it is working, because the whole idea is that we want someone to have a second chance, and we want them to be contributing members to our society. We want them to voice opinions as it pertains to their democracy. Who represents their children on the school board? Who's representing them in their respective cities and on the municipal level? Who's representing them in the state? I mean, I think that when people are engaged and involved in that sort of thinking and in those sort of activities, then it diminishes their idle minds to do something else. My mom and dad always tells me that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. And so if we can keep them busy and active and engaged, then I believe that we will get great returns as a result of it.